Luminous, LiveGuard, LivePure, Lectrix. ये चार ब्रांड्स किसने बनाए हैं? मिस्टर राकेश मल्होत्रा, हु इज द फाउंडर ऑफ सार ग्रुप एंड प्रायर टू दैट लुमिनस, जो कि एक बिजनेस उन्होंने बेचा। कैसे उन्होंने 1988 से अपनी एंटरप्रेन्योरियल जर्नी शुरू करी और आज तक नए नए बिजनेस खोले जा रहे हैं। एक वेटरन है बिजनेस में और बहुत ही सुपर शार्प एंड सुपर स्मार्ट है। उनकी जर्नी, उनके एक्सपीरियंसेस, बिल्डिंग बिजनेसेस, लूजिंग बिजनेसेस, लर्निंग फ्रॉम द एक्सपीरियंसेस, and how he used brand ambassadors at the right time to scale the business, like Akshay Kumar, Sachin Tendulkar and many more. तो ये सारी अनलॉक करेंगे, ये सारी की सारी लर्निंग्स इस वाले पॉडकास्ट में with Sir Rakesh Malhotra ji. He is also an angel, which you will get to know in this podcast. Keep watching. So great. Thank you so much today for joining us. We are again on the Founders Show, powered by Zypp Electric and Kaash. Akash. We have a very, very special guest today. An individual who's built not one, but multiple businesses. A person who's almost like a mentor to me also. He's been watching the Zypp's journey for the last 4-5 years. Has something which we'll share later about Zypp on his sleeve. And yeah, that's Mr. Rakesh Malhotra, who is a pioneer in the entrepreneurial world, modern world also, blending the businesses. So I'm equally excited to learn as much as the audience should be learning today, Chief, from your journey.
Happy to learn and share.
Yeah. So I'll possibly want to take you down the memory line, right? Memory lane, right? What were the early days of your life? Where you come from? What was the family setup? Right? Would love to first start from there. Like, what was your family into, and what prompted you into business?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I come from a middle class family background. My father was a very well read civil servant. He was an IAS officer, and in Delhi, spent all our lives living in Delhi and bit outside Delhi, but mostly in Delhi.
Okay.
3 years out of Delhi. That was from high school till passing out from class 12.
Sure.
We were in Afghanistan, in
Wow.
Kabul.
Really?
Yeah. It sounds strange today,
Yeah.
but in those days it wasn't that bad. My father was posted there by the government of India as an expert to assist the Afghan government.
Wow.
Prior to all of the Russian invasion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I was when I passed out high school.
Okay.
And other than that, always in Delhi.
Nice.
Yeah. So my family is, of course, father was a civil servant. Mother did more than a full-time job handling the two of us, me and my younger sister.
Nice.
And putting us through the motions. Otherwise, our family, I mean, in terms of our grandparents, were both on the business side as well as professional people.
Yeah.
Typical middle class family.
So nice.
That's
that's amazing. And how did you land on building a business, right? While dad was into civil service, I'm sure you would have thought sometime in life to do civil service also. Typically a legacy. If not, then we'd love to be entitled.
That's an interesting anecdote there. So my father was literally hell-bent on getting either me or my younger sister to be a civil servant.
Exactly. My story same. My dad wanted one of us to be a doctor.
Right. So,
both of us couldn't be.
So I was too much of a rebel to fall in line.
Wow.
And so I didn't, I told him straight on.
You could do that.
This is not happening. So that's not what I'm going to do, because I'd seen him go through, a lot of stress as an honest civil servant. In those days, time of license Raj and this and that, wasn't all that fun to be in a leadership level in civil service without while being unwilling to compromise on what your core values are. That wasn't fun. It's easier now than it was then. So no civil service for me. My sister almost gave in.
Oh,
she
did.
she went to Delhi School of Economics, did her masters in economics, and that's the perfect path to civil service.
Wow.
But then I think after that she also rebelled and went and joined National Institute of Fashion Technology after doing
Very
masters
different.
in economics. So neither of us did eventually become civil servants. Yeah.
Got it. So what did you end up doing then?
Yeah, so I went for an engineering school.
Okay.
So I passed out in 1983. That's
Oh.
giving away my age.
Oh my
so,
God.
so yeah, I mean, a couple of years, a year and a half, I worked for a few companies. Couldn't settle down anywhere.
Really?
Yeah, I changed a few jobs in those
Okay.
year and 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Uh, did well in those jobs, but I don't know. I mean, somehow I was always having an itch to do
Mm-hmm.
something more than that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and these are pre-liberalization times.
Yeah,
when-
yeah, yeah.
when
91.
It
Before
wasn't. It
91.
wasn't fashionable to be an entrepreneur.
It wasn't at all.
Yeah, and there wasn't even the word called entrepreneur. We would be
Correct.
called a businessman,
Yeah.
not an entrepreneur. That was the word then.
True.
So 1985, I quit my job at Siemens one fine day and came home and told my father that this is done. I'm
Mhm.
going to do something
Wow.
on my own. What I don't know, but I will do something on my own.
No idea.
No idea,
Nothing.
no nothing.
You quit.
Yes, I quit because it was just getting too much to work for someone.
Wow.
And my father was literally shocked out of his wits. He was very proud of the fact that I was drawing more salary than he was as a joint secretary. And in those days,
Wow.
civil servants were paid very little.
Wow.
And a good job at Siemens was well-paying job. It was giving me a decent amount of money. I decided to quit nonetheless. And he was very surprised. He didn't know what the hell is going on with this guy. When everything looks good, why does he have to take on problems?
True.
And I think my mother was a lot more supportive in terms of her, her conviction
Yeah.
in her boy, if you like.
Really.
So then she did support a bit, and then I started something in 1985. That first venture was to make power backup systems for PCs.
Okay.
So, this is before your time, but
Wow.
1985, first PCs were launched. in
Really?
India. Yeah.
Okay.
So you used to buy a personal computer, an IBM DOS PC,
Mhm.
DOS PC,
Mhm.
with a 5.25-inch floppy drive for 1 lakh rupees.
My
That
goodness.
was the price,
Crazy.
right? And dollar was eight rupees to a dollar. So you can figure out how much a DOS PC was
Madness.
costing. And a place like India, where there is so much of power outages, and then was even worse. It just wasn't possible to run a computer without a power backup.
Yeah.
And UPSs in those days used to cost, for a single PC, you would spend 45,000 rupees to buy a UPS.
Wow.
Right. So this was unsustainable. We felt there is a great opportunity to do something about it. So I ended up teaming up with two, nearly retired power electronics engineers at CDOT,
Wow.
which was the then premier place
Yeah.
for power electronics. CDOT was Center for Development
Right.
of Telematics,
Right, I remember.
precursor to the telecom revolution
Yes.
in India. And those two gentlemen helped me out at my home in the evening,
Okay.
and we set out to design a power backup system for PCs.
Okay.
And in about 5-6 months, we ended up putting something together, which kind of worked.
Wow.
And we tested and tried it out a few times, and every time the computer would work fine. And as a 23-year-old, I felt that I've cracked it.
Yeah.
And so I decided that, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Wow.
Went around borrowing money from my father's provident fund, friends, relatives, whoever I could find.
Really?
No
You
bank,
did
no
that?
VCs, no private equity, right?
Obviously nothing.
So that's the time before all of that.
True.
So Anyway, I put together some amount of money, and we rented a place in a place called Kakrola
Okay.
in Najafgarh area.
Nice.
Lardora area हुआ करता था.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
place was that's where you could put up a factory. So I had a small rented place. I put together a small team, and we started to manufacture those boxes. And because they were, topical, they were solving a problem.
Yeah.
The traction was pretty good.
Wow.
And immediately in like 5-6 months, we got orders worth almost about 1.5 crore. And to put it in perspective, 1.5 crore in 1985
Big.
was a lot of money.
Big money, right?
Right? It was a lot of money.
Almost 10x
Yeah.
of what today.
I would say
or
100x.
more. Or 100x.
I would say 100x.
Wow.
And so things started to roll, and we were in business. We started getting money. And the corporates of the time were lapping it up because they were saving almost 65% of what they would have to spend to buy the existing solutions.
Wow.
And while we were ending up making 50% profits.
Solid
So
stuff.
it was a good deal for everyone.
Amazing.
And so it took off.
Really? So that's your
And
first business?
That was the first business.
And what did you call it?
This company was called Oak Power Systems.
Okay.
OAK Power Systems. And this was the precursor to Luminous.
Yes.
And then, about 8-9 months into selling those products, they started to bomb because we hadn't done enough testing. Right? And we sent them all over the country.
Oh, crazy.
And people
No
started
after
using
sales thought
them.
of.
Yeah, I mean,
in that sense.
Like a 23-year-old with stars in his eyes. I felt that ये तो सब चलेगा यार, अभी बना दिया तो
सही
चलेगा,
बात है, चलना चाहिए.
अभी चल रहा है तो आगे भी चलेगा.
Absolutely.
So when they went out, they started to fail.
Hmm.
And then next 1.5 years was quite a tough time because all I could do with all my team members was to go and service.
Yeah.
And given the value system with which we were brought up, there was no way we were going to show our back to anyone in terms of delivering what we had committed to deliver. So next 1.5 years was that. And finally, after 1.5 years of effort, in somewhere around January, February of 1988, it felt that और तो ये होगा नहीं.
It was wearing you out.
Not wearing me out. It was just not doable. We felt that, instead of fixing this over there, we'll have to actually redo it. And customers, of course, can't wait that long.
Yeah.
And therefore, we had a choice of just letting it go. And those companies were large companies. They wouldn't have cared.
True.
But we were not being able to sit with our conscience properly, saying that इसको छोड़ के रास्ते में जाना तो ठीक नहीं.
Right.
So we ended up borrowing more money.
Okay.
To refund all the customers.
Whoa.
Take back all of that stuff that we had built.
Okay.
And by the time we were done with this, I was in 46 lakhs of debt. In a personal debt.
Sure.
With my family in 1988.
5 years. You almost four years.
1985 to
85
early
to
88, so almost 2.5 years. Yeah. So about a year was rosy time, and the other 1.5 years was hell.
Okay.
So all put together, 2.5 years of good life lesson.
Yeah, I'm
of
sure.
Figuring out कि क्या ठीक होता है और क्या ठीक नहीं होता है.
Wow.
What to do and what not to do. I guess it was an expensive lesson to learn. For that age and time.
Yeah.
And so I had to start rebuilding again, and choice was to go back to work.
Yeah.
In which case it would have been nearly impossible to pay back that debt.
Sure.
The salaries were not what they are today.
True.
So 46 lakhs was one hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, in that time.
And so I thought to myself, it wasn't out of bravado, but it was out of redemption pressure.
Yeah.
That I had to go back and say, yaar, ek baar aur try to karna padta hai.
Whoa. Bold.
Right, so we went back and started doing a second thing. So I actually started to work with a few companies that were competing with us when I used to be in my job, and some smaller businesses. There was a company called DB Power Electronics in Pune, which used to make UPSs for large computers, the mainframes of those times.
Okay.
And so I went to them. They weren't being very successful selling their product.
Sure.
They had a good product, but they couldn't sell it.
Okay. UPS only.
UPS,
Same line.
but the larger ones.
Larger ones. Okay.
The ones for the mainframe computers.
Understood.
So I tied up with them and I said that, look, I'll help you sell and service this. I have skills on that. And, if I succeed, you pay me commissions.
Okay.
And if I don't, then you lose nothing anyways.
Yeah.
You're anyway not doing much. So मैं try कर लेता हूँ यार कोई
Absolutely.
तो
मैं बेच के देख लेता हूँ.
मैं भी देख लेता हूँ कुछ कर सकते हैं. That worked out well because in the first year and a half, we managed to get them some seriously large customers.
Oh wow. And this was you solely or with the team?
No, I had a bunch of employees, 3 people with me at that time.
Okay.
Who were helping me do the front end in terms of service support or technicians and stuff like that, but largely me. And then that worked out for about 2 years and we ended up making a ton of money.
Oh.
So from 46 lakhs in debt, I was probably sitting with a 4 crore capital base.
My goodness.
So it turned around the other way around.
Wow.
And then in 91,
yeah.
But and also parallelly at that time, we were working on refining the product that we had left behind in the earlier venture, and started to make it good for both PCs. And then we felt that home power backups would be a very large market.
Okay.
Because that's going to be even bigger than just PCs that are being sold for the same reason, right?
Nice.
So, yeah, so that's what we did for a year and a half, and then we were good to go. Back
Built
with
again.
some money and back with a product, and this time around well tested.
Wow.
So that's when Luminous was born.
Okay.
As a power backup for homes kind of a business.
Nice.
And then, of course, because you have been burnt once, you become super conservative.
Yeah.
Right. So from 91 till 2006, 15 years, we built it one brick at a time.
Okay.
And in 91, one of my co-founder, Navneet, who's still my partner in various ventures, that's our group, and the chairman of the group now, after I have kind of left all executive responsibility. So he came in 91, and between the two of us, we then started to build it up.
Okay.
And then by 2006, it was already like about 100 odd crore company making some 5-6 crores of profit.
Wow.
And brand was well established. It was reasonably in good shape, but built super conservatively.
Wow.
No risk, no debt, no outside capital, no nothing.
Wow.
Everything is in accrual.
Wow.
And in hindsight, we could have done it faster if we had taken some few chances. And I keep telling anyone who cares to listen the new entrepreneurial word that, while it's good to not dilute without reason, but it's also not good to not have enough capital.
True.
When it is limiting growth. So I think we kind of took a long time to come to terms with taking risk.
Okay.
But when we did in 2006...
You finally raised capital.
No, actually, no.
Okay.
So in 2006, we decided from being a debt-free company to be a 6x geared company.
Okay.
So from no debt, we borrowed 6 times of our net worth.
Wow.
By leveraging the brand.
Okay.
As a collateral.
Okay.
To set up a battery plant.
Wow.
Yeah. So from no risk taking to all in risk taking in one day.
Really?
And sounds absurd in hindsight, but that was a pivotal point for us. I think that's the point. That's the time when the business really took off for us. And then from 2006 to 2011, in 5 years, we went from 100 crores to 1250 crores in top line.
Wow. Crazy.
In a product business, that's unprecedented level of growth.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, you see these kind of growths in tech businesses.
True.
But if you're a manufacturing business, you don't see, and you're already a 17-year-old company.
True.
You don't see these kind of growth rates.
From 100 to 1250 crores.
Yeah, all of it in 5 years. And
No.
in those 5 years, we also at the same time went from 6 crores of profit to 140 crores of profit in the year.
Amazing.
Right? So it
Amazing.
was like a rapid growth rate. But I think it all happened because we had learned some very solid lessons in the first failed attempt.
Yeah.
This is why I think we do tend to feel that risk is bad to take. But I think now this is becoming more and more common, and we are encouraged to fail fast.
True.
But I think still there is a lot of social stigma in this country for any entrepreneur, even in your
True.
generation or even
True.
below, even the younger generation,
Big time.
about what happens when you fail at doing something,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
but frankly speaking, the lessons you learn out of something like that
Yeah.
are priceless. I mean,
Wow.
if you do it early, then
Yeah.
well, you make the mistake on a much smaller
True.
base, right? So
True.
you end up losing in absolute terms
Yeah.
much less.
Yeah.
Right. So that helped. So the foundations were very solid the second time around.
Wow.
So they just really
That's so good.
worked well. Yeah.
I think there's so much to learn in that small session that you have shared, that, the early years you first left a great job where you were earning more than your father in a very reputed company, Siemens, still very reputed. You left that all, started a business as an experiment, started selling, learned a big lesson of failure, that what after sales, right? And then went back to do some adventure of reselling for someone, and then build such a large venture. I think it tells so many of our users to start up, fail, because that's what is your building block.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, see, you will fail someday or the other.
Yeah.
At something or the other.
Yeah.
Question is, if you fail early enough, you have a lot more time to pivot, to learn, to do stuff. You fail late,
Yeah.
that's when you get into trouble.
Yeah, you can't then control.
Hard to manage.
Wow. But I think I would like to go back to, I like to ask this from every entrepreneur who come on the show, that what was your biggest why? Like every business that you start, there is that inner feeling which is, मेरा मतलब मैंने शुरू क्यों किया? क्या मुझे किसी को प्रूव करना था, या मुझे पैसा कमाना था, या मुझे नाम कमाना था? तो आपने, you left your job and you could have gone back to a good job again after failure, but you were hell bent. तो आपका why क्या था सर? Would love to know that.
Yeah, you know what? Aajkal, the evolution of this thinking around purpose and what I want to do and how we do it is a lot more evolved for our generations of today.
Yeah.
So if my children today have to be asked this question, they have a clearer answer on why. But actually, honestly, in our times, when I'm talking about many years ago or 40 years back, those days, I think life was a little bit less complicated.
Achha.
So it wasn't like you were not expected to know clearly as to where you are going, where you are headed, except that हाँ ठीक है यार जॉब करनी है, इतना कमाना है कि घर का ध्यान रख सके, और धीरे धीरे सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. That was how life used to be.
सही.
Right? For me, when I worked for these companies, I kind of felt that it was restrictive to my wanting to do what I want to do. So, for example, at Siemens, I mean, I had a boss who was a very well-reputed man and very solid, leader from whom I learned a fair bit in just 4.5 months that I worked there. But I would say he was kind of responsible for me wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Oh.
Why? Because he gave me a task to do, a target to achieve for a year, and I ended up doing that in 3 months. And when I went back to him, I thought that I'm going to get praised for what I've done.
Yeah.
Expecting, I mean, you're a 23-year-old guy. You're looking for approval, so 100%. To say, right? I mean, so I kind of went there and I expected to be
at least a pat on the
back and a little bit of praise and this and that.
Yeah.
And what he told me was, that यार ये जो तुमने किया ये काम तो बहुत अच्छा है. Is way beyond what I expected you to do. But you have to understand that if you end up doing your year's budget in 3 months, everyone's targets will be reset for a much higher
Oh
level.
my God.
And I kind of I
Man.
couldn't figure out whether I should take this as a praise or should I take this as a problem or what is it.
Yeah.
So when I went back and I reflected, I felt यार ये यहाँ रहा ना तो मेरी जो एनर्जी है या ड्राइव है
Yeah.
वो कहीं स्नब ना हो जाए.
Right.
So that kind of motivated me to look out and say, okay, let's go do something where we are not limited by someone else's speed of
Thinking.
growth or thinking or whatever they are looking at. So
Wow.
that's what prompted me to get.
Really amazing. तो आपने Luminous बनाया, which is into battery. So your knowledge of UPS building in Oak Power helped you build Luminous. But Luminous has several other businesses of what we learned, right? How an entrepreneur, जैसे आज मैं सोचता हूँ, मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि एक बिजनेस ठीक से चल जाए, जब तक वो ठीक से नहीं चले दूसरा नहीं सोच सकते. बट आपने इतने सारे बिजनेसेस बना दिए, तो वो कैसे बने और कब आपने वो कॉल लिया, कैसे आपने वो मैनेजमेंट बनाया that people can run those businesses and you can focus on other things. Maybe a lot of us can learn from your journey in that.
No, so to be fair, at Luminous, the first 15 years we were doing only power electronics.
Perfect.
Not even batteries.
That's great.
We were buying batteries from Exide and putting them together with our products, and we were selling the whole thing as a solution.
Which was the UPS solution only.
Yeah, the UPS and inverters and
inverters,
solar,
yes.
all of that.
Right.
But mainly power electronics.
Right.
So it was a pretty focused activity for a very long period of time. Now, in that time, we learned a lot about batteries because we were using them.
Yeah.
We learned a fair bit about, how a product development cycle works, especially in hardware businesses, product businesses. And we also got the time to build deep leadership pipeline. Because there was a 15-year period, you were building people from scratch. You built a bunch of, people work with people. They don't only work with organizations. So over a period of time, you build a sort of a pool of core team, what you call. I mean, like you are building yours.
Nice.
So in 15 years, you put together at least about a 15-20 people core team, which really is deeply understanding of where your vision is, what you want to accomplish, how do you want to go about doing it, etc., etc., and who are aligned in some sense, right? So and they have so you can almost work without fully communicating, right? So that team, once it gets done, then you get emboldened.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, okay, fair enough. Now I have this core team and I can sort of take 4 out of these guys and try doing this, and 3 out of these guys and try doing that, and so on. So that's how Luminous then went into batteries and then went into appliances, and one step at a time.
Wow.
Every 2, 3, 4 years, we kind of moved into one new area.
Okay.
And then over time, it all came together under one brand umbrella.
Okay.
Which became powerful.
Right.
But then, what happens is that entrepreneurs have an itch.
Yeah.
Right? So,
always.
Right? They don't
do something new.
Whatever is already working is not exciting, at least not for me.
It is for everyone, right? I can tell you.
So yeah, every time things settle down, you want to bring some uncertainty to the table.
Yeah.
And growth to the table.
I know what is it there, right? Every entrepreneur is like this, right? There's an itch to do more, to get into that hustle again, right? It is always going. And now you're also doing something new, which is right on your t-shirt, right? Lectrix.
Yeah.
In a way.
True. So, no, yeah. So that itch is, I guess, the driving force for most entrepreneurs to try and create, because you're always...
You have the DNA possibly, yeah.
Yeah, DNA, or I mean, you basically find your inspiration out of that. The energy is coming from there. Kuch karna hai, kuch naya karna hai, kuch challenge naya dekhna hai, because that's where entrepreneurs find their self-growth coming from, right? I mean, otherwise, your business is growing, you can measure it in dollars or rupees in terms of growth, but when you want to reflect inside and you want to see where is your self-growth coming from, you need to challenge yourself, right? And that is why I guess most people try different things. That's what serial entrepreneurship is about, right? You're done with one and then you want another one, and another one, and so on.
Correct.
because you're just not satisfied,
Absolutely.
with what you've already done. You want to do
Yeah.
something next.
Yeah. So I think just extended that point then. How to control that energy? Because a lot of youngsters, even we, when we started this business, as soon as we started, my itch was let's launch multiple cities. And I learned a very bad lesson. No, that's bad, right? Let's pivot, a lot of things. How to channelize that energy, in today's entrepreneur's mind, where they have not yet built the first business well and they are already thinking something new.
Yeah. So
क्या उसकी कुछ मैथ्स है साइंस है
I think maths तो नहीं है कोई. I
Yeah.
would imagine.
Yeah.
I think everyone has a different bandwidth.
Correct.
And there are people who can find a lot of complexity simple, and then there are folks who go deep,
Right.
right, and who need a boundary wall
Huh.
to be able to really do something great out of it. So
Right.
both types have their own path to success.
जी.
But that said, I guess the issue therefore boils down to self-awareness.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
the biggest problem for an entrepreneur is because he's so celebrated
Hmm.
once he starts succeeding,
Hmm.
that he can easily fall into the trap of, illusionary perception of himself.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to know
हाँ
where you really are.
सही बात है
Right? 2 राउंड फंडिंग के हो गए तो हमको लगता है बस अब तो बहुत बड़ी कंपनी हो
हाँ आ गए
गई.
कहीं
और कल को अगर वो 2 झटके लग गए तो ऐसा लगता है कुछ नहीं बचा.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Yes.
I think that is where the maturity of an entrepreneur
Hmm.
comes, and that's where tenacity comes from. That's where durability of an entrepreneur comes from. Because anyway, nothing gets created worthwhile
True.
in terms of really bankable value
Hmm.
in a very short period of time. You have been at it for what, 7 years?
6 years.
It's 6 years.
Yeah.
And really to monetize a business of any nature,
True.
it takes about 10 years in India to get to a point where you can get serious monetization for a business.
Yeah.
That's if
You're
you do
right.
it in that time, it's fast,
Correct.
right?
True.
But most people do not in today, and especially the younger generation,
Ji.
most the Gen,
Yeah.
the Gen what, Z's or
Z, Y, whatever. you
whatever.
call it.
So these folks don't have the attention span to stay at one thing for that long many a
Okay.
times.
Okay.
Now, I think that's where it's important for people to understand that, am I really going to spread myself too thin? Do I have it in us as an organization and as a leader
Hmm.
to really go beyond?
Hmm.
Or am I somewhat getting carried away because of the past success in terms of what I'm taking on?
Wow.
Now, that said, I personally am guilty of doing a lot beyond what I should have done.
Really?
Okay, so I know that and I can confess to you that it is not because I don't know that I'm doing too much. It is because I want to accomplish a fair bit
Yeah.
before I do the next chapter of my life,
Okay.
given my age profile,
Uh-huh.
that I am knowingly taking absurd
Wow.
diversification.
Wow.
Right? So that's how it is. But I think most people have their own reasons when they do this.
Right.
As long as entrepreneurs are doing a conscious decision making
Hmm.
around how much to spread,
Hmm.
how much to diversify, how much to take on,
Hmm.
after having reflected
Hmm.
with some connection to in their own reality,
Yeah.
then I think it's okay to try new things, and
Try
that's
new
what
things.
entrepreneurs will always do.
True.
And in a way, that's what creates or paves the way
Yeah.
for the business to flourish.
True.
Because
True.
you're removing certain boundaries, you are creating certain growth engines,
Correct.
and some of them will work and some of them will not.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's okay.
What do you think of the current startup landscape? जो इंडिया में अभी ये शार्क टैंक की दुनिया चल रही है, प्लस इतने सारे स्टार्टअप्स फंड हो रहे हैं. You're seeing so much happening. I'm sure you are also participating in that in some form or shape. But क्या लग रहा है आपको इकोसिस्टम का? कहाँ हैं हम in India as the current landscape, and where do you see this going?
See, look, I think it's an evolving ecosystem. So in my view, we are. So देखो भाई, शार्क टैंक की दुनिया का मुझे पता नहीं.
Sure.
because that I am not. I mean, that's not something that I understand well.
Okay.
The showbiz of entrepreneurship is different than entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it is.
So I will stay out of the Shark Tank question.
Okay. Okay.
But I think on the entrepreneurial ecosystem, I think what works for India is the sheer energy in the youth, because we're such a young country and there is just so much positive mindset in the youth about the future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we are genuinely an optimistic race, right? India is an optimistic race.
That's true.
Indians are by definition optimistic. I mean,
Yeah.
we look at our 380 AQI in Delhi and we believe that someday this will fix,
Yeah.
right? Even though it's going down south,
Correct.
but we believe ये ठीक हो जाएगा,
सही बात है.
right?
क्या optimism
सड़कों
है.
पे जाम लगा हुआ है, लेकिन हमको लगता है
ठीक
आज
है.
नहीं तो कल कभी तो ठीक हो जाएगा.
क्या optimism है.
Optimism. So we are optimistic as a race. So
Yeah.
this is great for entrepreneurship, right? I mean,
Yes.
if you believe in a better future, that's what entrepreneurship is all about,
Yeah.
right? So that I think is one fundamental factor in India which is in favor of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
By definition.
Yes.
I think the second is where we stand as a economy is also very, 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 very favorable for entrepreneurship. When I started out first in 1985, nobody thought India would grow. Nobody had any positive optimism. And if I see the second time or the third time I started entrepreneurship, which was post selling Luminous,
Yeah.
Majority stake in Luminous to Schneider, in 2012, I started again this whole Live Pure, Live Guard and all of
You
this.
need to cover that.
Right? So at that stage, the mindset was nothing can go wrong.
Yeah.
And today, in 2023, 10 years after that,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question. And I think there's a global unanimity on one thing. कि यार अगले 10 साल में, unless we really have some catastrophic failures of judgment, you can't go wrong with this country in terms of markets and demand.
Yeah.
Right? So India, by definition, is at a stage where markets are supportive.
Yes.
Growth is supportive.
Yeah.
Your mindset as a population is very optimistic. And you have high analytical and educational skills, at least in some part of the population, which is becoming entrepreneurial.
Right.
So all of this is a very potent combination.
Yeah.
Add to that a little bit fuel of capital and some debt.
Yeah.
And you have all the ingredients for a good recipe, right?
True. True. So it's all good and India is moving in the right direction. Yeah.
It is. No, it's not all good. There's never anything which is all good, right? So
we have to fail also.
Yeah, we have to fail. And I think one of the problem is, I think, the lack of respect for shareholder capital, risk capital. I think is becoming a bit of a challenge in the Indian startup ecosystem. Okay. I think, we cannot assume that risk capital will keep chasing bad capital allocation.
Yeah.
That will not happen.
That will kill it. Yeah.
That will kill it. It does kill it. And that kind of, and then second is governance. You cannot have blow-ups.
True.
In trying to show a high growth or, so governance for a startup, if that confidence gets shaken, then risk capital's availability can seriously get impaired.
Sure. So
I think those two are risks we need to watch out for. And as a sort of community of startup founders, I think there is a need for us all. I mean, I'm not one of you guys now, but
you're all there,
right? So, but I think there is a need for startup founders to make sure that there is a very high degree of responsibility shown towards how capital is deployed.
Very important.
And how governance is executed. I think those two things, if they are not, that's a reputation of a whole tribe. It's not a reputation of one company. So I think that's something we should watch out for.
Very important. Now, you built the first business solely, right? And in your second venture, you got a partner, right? And I think you built the third venture, right? Post Luminous. So how important is to have co-founders early on in a journey, right? And how do you find them, seek them? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so see, I've had only one co-founder all through my
Since
journey,
91.
since 91.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't have to find him because he was my cousin.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I got him as a gift from my mother's sister because he's her son.
Nice.
And the way we got him in was he just had completed his undergrad engineering school at Chandigarh, and he was to go to US for his masters.
Okay.
Got a scholarship and everything, and my aunt was very bothered because she thought that she will lose her only son once he goes to the US.
Yeah.
And rightly so. So she told me, "यार इसको तू रोक ले किसी तरीके से." So that's how I got my first book.
Wow.
Right, and it has turned out to be an asset for life.
Yeah.
I mean, we have done hundreds of things together, and we have kind of built serious businesses, serious value out of it.
Yeah.
And we still do it together. So there is no change in.
Nice.
I think what now it's 32 years and counting.
Lovely.
Right. So, but to answer your question on co-founders, I think it's very important to have somebody to share your pressure with, somebody to share your load with.
Yeah.
And if you have complementary personalities, I would say, not even skills, that's very, very helpful.
True.
Right? I mean, skills you will acquire, and it's good to have complementary skills. If you have complementary personalities, that's a great combination in co-founders.
Absolutely.
Because then you kind of, between the co-founders, you cover for each other.
Yeah. Very well
said. It's a
said.
yin and yang situation for
very well
a
said,
partnership. So I think, and for us, the two of us, we are chalk and cheese.
Really?
We are totally diametrically opposite people.
Oh.
Right? I mean, he is like perfect at detail, execution, getting it perfectly right, and analytical and all of that. And head down, execute at any cost.
Okay.
And understands risks, and yet goes after the big opportunities.
Wow.
And I am completely a dreamer. I mean, I cannot see. I'm colorblind to risk, is what I tell anyone who works with me.
Everything can be done.
Nothing. I cannot see risk. Right. So if I didn't have him as my co-founder, I would have messed up many things.
Wow.
And I think we complement each other really well as founders.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I relate so much of it. Yeah, so much of it to what we are doing here with all the skills that you mentioned. I'm just figuring out. Yeah, ये वहाँ जा रहा है, ये वहाँ जा रहा है. Very important.
Everywhere is the same story.
Very
right?
important.
So
yeah. वो टीम होनी बहुत जरूरी है. अगर वो मिल जाए तो फिर गेम अलग है.
And skills you will find.
Yes,
but
I agree.
Leadership is not only about skills. It's actually all about character.
It is.
Right. So at the end of the day, that you cannot acquire just like that. You have to have it set in place. So that's what differentiates a founder-led company.
Yes.
From a corporation of sorts, which has now lost the phase.
I know.
It is now a structure.
Correct. Now, so you built Luminous and you ended up selling it, and then you restarted again. Would love to understand this journey a little bit. आपने बहुत कैश कमाया होगा उस समय जब इतनी बड़ी कंपनी आपने बना ली थी. तो उस समय, and I know that entrepreneurial itch of yours would continue to make you build businesses. But how did that happen? How was the experience? And then
so see, once we sold, I was at that time I was at 49 years of age.
Okay.
And Navneet, who's my co-founder, is about 9 years younger, so he was just 40.
Okay.
Right. So we sat down together and he said, "Okay, we've got a reasonable amount of money. We can."
It was a cash exit?
It was a cash exit.
Wow.
We had sold 74%. We kept 26% in a joint venture.
Okay.
So we had a private equity player who also took an exit. So more or less, we had enough liquidity created out of it. It's not that now you did not need to do it for money anymore.
सही बात है.
वो तो हो गया काम.
Correct.
And you could could call it a day and get into becoming an investor. And we thought that we will get into becoming an investor or whatever.
हाँ.
एक साल शुरू भी किया. In fact, I applied for an AIF structure approval from SEBI for a venture capital fund. Took almost ready to get an approval clearance.
Wow.
We put together a team of very seasoned VC investors as my partners.
Oh.
So it reached that point. We committed a $30 million GP capital.
Okay.
And we had commitments of 160 million on LP money.
Wow.
So we were ready to launch a $200 million first close VC fund in 2012. Which
What
was a massively large fund for that time.
Massive fund for that time.
Then some wise man called Badri Narayan, my old friend from E&Y, if he watches this, he will remember. He used to be heading the reconstruction practice in E&Y.
Okay.
So Badri met me one day and he said, "Yaar, ye aap karna kya cha rahe ho?" So he sat me down for a good 2-hour lecture. He told me, walk me through how and why I should not do what I am planning to do.
Okay.
And he told me, look, you will never ever be happy managing someone else's money and being answerable to them.
Oh.
And this is something you should not do. This is what my advice is. And he actually, and I'm thankful to him, he sat me down for a good 2 hours, and that's the beauty of having good mentors and good friends. Who are able to show you the mirror,
right,
and tell you what you should or should not do, right? I mean, that's an important asset we usually do not value as much.
Absolutely.
We take them for granted, right?
Correct.
But Badri did tell me this, and I'm happy for having received that advice. And we did therefore reflect and felt कि नहीं यार ये तो नहीं करेंगे. अपने पैसे से इन्वेस्टमेंट करेंगे.
अच्छा.
लेकिन
दूसरे
फंड नहीं चलाएंगे क्योंकि वो हमसे होगा नहीं.
अच्छा.
And that's what we did eventually, and we created Incubate, which is our private investment platform.
Right.
But it's a prop book. It's a balance sheet investing, and we do invest.
Family office kind of investing.
Yeah, and we've been consistently investing in startups.
Right.
From that time, but only from your own balance sheet, no managing other people's money. Okay. So we didn't make it a business. Sure. We made it an investment.
Fund is a proper business then. Yeah. You got to be answerable to
that was the thing. So after about a year and a half, setting up a family foundation for, we have a charitable foundation that we had to put together which got funded by selling Luminous shares.
Okay.
So we had to put that in place. We had to put some, investment activity and family office in place.
Okay.
So all of those things happened for a year and a half.
Achha.
And then you were done with all that.
Ab
kya karna hai? So that's when the next round started.
Oh.
So that's when Live Pure was born in 2012. 2015 we started LiveGuard.
Okay.
And Lectrix was started in 2020.
Wow. And all of this was under the SAR Group umbrella?
All of it.
So you formed SAR Group first, or you formed...
It was always called SAR Group,
Achha.
Even from the Luminous time.
Okay.
So Luminous was one business in it, which got sold.
Correct.
And then we had continued to do.
And you still own that 26%?
That we exited in 2017.
2017, yeah. Okay. Great. So now you have these 3 large businesses. The third one is obviously working on. In fact, we recently announced our partnership with Electrics. Hopefully, Zypp and Lectrix is going to change the way EVs are run, and green is everywhere is what we want to see. Good that your logo is also green, so we don't have any conflict.
No conflict. We are color coordinated.
We are color coded that way. Lovely. Now, I think within these businesses, आपने बहुत सारे brand ambassadors भी add करे, right? जैसे I think you have Akshay Kumar as one of your brand ambassadors, and so many. Sachin also.
Sachin is for Live Pure.
Sachin is for Live Pure. So how has been that experience, right? I mean, you used to have a manager who used to get these endorsements done, or how was the entire experience of having them, whether it helps or not?
Sure. So see, look, we started out with brand ambassador experience at the Luminous time itself.
Achha.
So we had, we started with, Navjot Singh Sidhu,
Acha.
then Amrish Puri,
Okay.
and then finally Sachin Tendulkar at Luminous. And
Acha.
so Sachin we started with in Luminous in 2010.
Okay.
And I think they still continue there
Yeah.
as a brand ambassador with
Okay.
Sachin.
Yeah.
When I was starting up with Live Pure,
Hmm.
this is another interesting anecdote, I think, a very, very interesting story to tell. So I
Yes.
met Sachin in 2012.
Okay.
I think it was May 2012 or something like that, when Live Pure was just being set up.
Hmm.
And I went to Dhaka to meet him.
Okay.
Next day he was playing an ODI there.
Okay.
And I met him at his hotel the night before. We had dinner together.
Yeah.
And at that time, I don't know if you remember, he was at his 99th 100 for a long time.
Whoa.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. It was a patch, right?
Very
Yeah.
long patch. I think almost like 7-8 months or more. I don't know how long, but quite some time.
Okay.
And the next day was his match, and I took my flight back. We sat down, we talked, and we agreed upon. We knew each other, of course, because of our Luminous relationship.
Right.
Well, we knew each other well, and we sat down and had a chat, and we agreed कि अच्छा ठीक है Live Pure में हम करेंगे इसको एक साथ, and we agreed on whatever were our
Sure.
in fact, he was a shareholder in Live Pure.
Oh, nice. So it was an equity kind of a deal.
Right.
Cash plus
in case of any, that's how it was.
Nice.
And so we came back. Next day, I took a flight back from Dhaka to Delhi. And when I landed, I realized that he had hit his 100th.
Wow.
So it was
That's the entrepreneur's energy of India.
I don't know whether it's my energy or his.
Lovely.
But it was a wonderful coincidence, if you like. And, so therefore, I can't forget the days.
Absolutely. And the dates.
And so it was wonderful. And, yes, so it does work. So to answer your question on whether brand ambassadors help, they do. But provided there is a real synergy in the values of the brand and the brand ambassador. Otherwise, it can be quite a force fit.
Okay.
So there are two things that happen out of a brand ambassador being used for a brand. Number one, it multiplies your spends reach. So if you spend an X amount of money on a campaign with a celebrity in it, at least it gets noticed with some multiplication depending on the celebrity.
Sure.
That's no guarantee of its outcome. That's only reach.
Yeah.
Effectiveness will come only on how you use the celebrity, number one, but more importantly, how do the core values match? So for us, in Live Pure, Sachin Tendulkar's core values absolutely perfectly match, because we are making water that you drink. So you really have to depend on the quality of what you are getting. And this guy stands for dependability.
Yeah.
We want to stand for dependability, and we are doing everything as a brand to be dependable.
True.
So the synergy of core values, you have never let your country down. We have we don't let our customers down.
Yeah.
Whichever way you look at it, the personality, you have been always honest. Live Pure is an honest brand. It always says what it does what it says.
Yeah.
Even if it does something wrong, it acknowledges, and so on. So those correlations in your personality are very important. If you stand for the same things, brand ambassadors multiply your effectiveness. If you don't, I mean, you cannot get value. In fact, then it becomes actually your believability goes down.
Yeah.
Because the person stands for something else and you stand for something else, and it just does not match.
True. Very interesting. So I think my next thing is to know about profit generating businesses versus cash burn businesses. आपने शायद सिर्फ प्रॉफिट बना के, बिकॉज वो टाइम वेंचर कैपिटल होता भी नहीं था. So you need to build a business, generate profits, invest your own capital, not look at external capital जैसे आपने कुछ किया. क्या अगर आज आप बिजनेस स्टार्ट करोगे नया, मतलब बिल्कुल, maybe a young entrepreneur like us, how would you navigate in the current environment?
Yeah, no, so look, all businesses go through the cycles of building the base and then making the right kind of profits and the right kind of cash flows and so on and so forth.
Ji.
This is not new, right? It's
Yeah.
always been the case.
True.
There is a pre-operative stage of any business. There
Yes.
is a operative stage of any business, and
Hmm.
then there is a maturity stage of a business.
Yeah.
The question is who funds it. That's the only difference. So in reality, where the so there is nothing wrong in burning some amount of cash. The question is, are you burning cash for, what would I call it, vanity, or are you burning cash for building the foundation for a business that will generate profits and cash flow at some point in time?
Yeah.
And today that investment is necessary. The difference is between vanity and investment.
Understood.
So if the business is burning cash for vanity, I don't think that's sustainable. No matter whose funding you are using, because the color of the capital does not change.
True.
The outcome that you have with investment versus vanity, right? Whether you are putting your own money or you are having a VC's money or whatever it is, it doesn't change anything in terms of the outcome.
Sure.
What changes is where you are putting that money in. Are you burning? You have a 100 crore loss in a business to achieve, let's say, a 500 crore top line, for example.
Yeah.
It's okay as long as there is value that you are building out of burning that 100 crores, which is something that will give you a, ongoing return in terms of profit generation or cash flow generation at some point in time, whichever is that point in time.
Got it.
So I think the only thing that has changed is the ability to take that risk is going up.
Yeah.
For
That's
people, because there is risk capital available.
Makes
Right?
sense.
That's the only difference.
True.
Other than that, I guess, so therefore the pace at which you can aspire to grow and take risk can change.
True. Makes sense.
It doesn't change anything fundamentally.
Yeah. हाँ, मतलब आपने 100 करोड़ लगा के 500 करोड़ बना लिए, बट क्या आपके अगले 500 करोड़ में भी 100 करोड़ लग रहे हैं, वो सही नहीं है फिर. It should be much lesser possible.
मतलब या अगले 500 करोड़ आपको पहले 500 करोड़ करने में 2 साल लगे, अगले 500 करोड़ करने में 3 महीने लग रहे हैं, तो फिर और 100 करोड़ का बर्न भी चल सकता है, provided all of this is being done to eventually be able to have a great sustainable high speed growth while generating consistently better ROCs and cash flows out of your business.
Got it.
At some point in time.
Makes sense.
So if you're building an engine that can generate a lot of cash flow in future, and you have a strong non-vanity based matrix for figuring it out, then it's okay.
Sure. How do you think of building teams, right? In startups, I'm sure you've built such a large company. How many people are working in the entire SAR group today?
So ex Luminous, about 5,000, and another 5,000 at Luminous.
Wow. So such a huge 10,000 odd people you've built.
And now, of course, Luminous is not part of SAR group.
But you've enabled all of that, right? I think you'll be
to some degree.
To some degree. Now, what do you look at people at various stages? How do you build a management team? Now, I think you're very hands-off of business. So maybe this question is more for people in terms of learning how to build a team and how to professionalize that team to become organizations like yours, where you are hands-off and the business is running, which is a dream for any entrepreneur, right? I would love to see Zypp grow even after I'm gone, right? And I think you're building something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's not fully there yet, but of course,
nuts and bolts
are there. Things are coming into place, and that's an evolving scenario.
True, it is.
It takes companies to become institutions. It takes a generation.
Yes.
It doesn't happen in a month or two or whatever. But it's also a function of how you are building from the start.
Yeah.
So I can actually, in the new age startups that you see around, there are at least some examples I can put my finger on, which are less than 7-8-year-old companies that are already becoming institutions.
Wow.
Right? There are some, and some of your unicorn founders have managed to do something like that.
Wow.
Very well.
Wow, that's amazing.
And off business is one example.
It is one,
of
no
that,
doubt.
Right? So Ashish and Ruchi have been able to do a great job of building
great entrepreneurs. Yes.
So lovely work done there. And there are others, and a lot of these companies, and some people will do it a lot more with intent from day one.
Yes.
Some will figure it out a little bit later, but somewhere, this thing has to be done. But I guess leadership, from where I look at it, the way we do it is very simple. We create cultural fit as our first filter
Mm-hmm.
in terms of hiring and teaming up with people.
Okay.
Uh, Not that we get it right all the time, but
Yeah.
most of the time we end up getting it right. As a result of which, you have people who kind of stay with you long enough
Hmm.
to be part of your fabric,
Yeah.
because that's important.
Hmm.
If you want to build an institution, there has got to be some degree of continuity, which is what
Yeah.
founders bring to a founder-led startup.
Yes. Yes.
If you want that to be brought by a leadership team which is not a founding team or a founder, then there has got to be a good reason for that leadership team to stick together and
Yeah.
stay around for long enough to form the part of continuity. And unless you have some people leading for some period of time as a group, as a team, as a leadership, you will never really have the time to embed the culture of the organization in.
Yeah.
So I think so therefore culture is our first filter.
Okay.
So you get like-minded people who think about the same things, whose North Star is at the same place.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to negotiate on
True.
basics.
True.
Right? So that, I think, is the first filter. Second is, you try and hire for attitude, not for skills. In leadership even. Skills are a filter.
Correct.
But final selection on attitude. That's the second piece. And then you align incentives.
Yeah. Makes sense.
In a meaningful way. I guess these three are the big drivers.
Sure.
And then communication ongoing.
Correct.
Building
That's
that
very
equation, keeping that touch.
राकेश मल्होत्रा जी से मैंने तो बहुत कुछ सीखा. आई एम श्योर आप लोग ने भी बहुत कुछ सीखा होगा. कैसा लगा आपको ये पॉडकास्ट जरूर कमेंट्स में बताइएगा. व्हाट आर द अदर क्वेश्चंस दैट वी शुड आस्क आवर गेस्ट्स so that it can help you. Put it in comments and share this with people whom you think will learn a lot from Rakesh ji's journey. So, put your comments, like us, and share us.